Marianne and her stepson Elijah traveled deep into the wooded roads of Ohio, en route to the home of her late husband's sister. Elijah quietly scrolls through her phone, uninterested in small talk. Marianne brings up a local zoo, but Elijah solemnly declines. He can't bear to visit without his recently deceased father. Distracted, and with no GPS signal, Marianne misses the turn. As she searches her purse for an old map, Elijah spots an envelope bearing his name. She quickly snatches it back, refuses to explain, and hastily turns the car around. The sudden move shatters the windshield. As they reverse on the quiet highway, a vintage World War II fighter plane thunders overhead and crashes into a creek nearby. Elijah rushes to the wreckage. Marianne calls emergency services and follows. Through flames and twisted metal, they spot someone inside. Marianne struggles to lift the canopy. With effort, she frees the pilot, an injured man who insists on retrieving a photograph from the cockpit before escaping the fire. He introduces himself as Theodore Cole, part of the 2nd Squadron. Confused, Theodore asks if they're British or Dutch and demands to know what they're doing in Burma. Elijah stuns him by revealing they're in Ohio. The pilot claims he was just in a dogfight over terrain that doesn't exist nearby. Theodore spots a Dayton water tower and starts recalling memories of growing up there. Meanwhile, storm clouds begin forming overhead. Sheriff Parker hears the entire account as Theodore is transported to the Bradford Hospital. Marianne explains that the pilot believes he was shot down over Rangoon, which leads Elijah to suspect he may be a veteran of World War II. A government agent dismisses the claim, suggesting Theodore is delusional from head trauma. Later, Elijah sneaks into the hospital room, asking Marianne for vending machine money as a cover. Inside, Theodore grips Elijah's wrist, spooked by the boy's presence. Elijah questions whether he's dangerous. Theodore insists he's a soldier and claims it's Christmas Eve, 1941. Elijah gently corrects him. It's September. In desperation, Theodore offers Elijah a chocolate bar from his jacket, a brand the boys never heard of. Elijah hesitates, recalling the rule never to take candy from strangers. A guard notices Elijah and tries to intervene. Before being removed, Theodore begs Elijah to find someone named Sheriff Simmons. As Elijah escapes the room, a nurse and officer sedate Theodore. While driving back, Elijah tells Marianne everything. She believes Theodore is mentally unstable, but Elijah starts connecting the dots. Marianne recalls that the chocolate bar Theodore gave Elijah hasn't been made in decades. Troubled, she stops, turns around, and drives back toward Bradford. Meanwhile, military and government agents swarm the crash site. Bill Kaminsky, the lead agent, orders that no one is to speak to Theodore and insists they have a limited window, 7 hours, to send him back. He instructs responders to block off the area and move civilians at least 10 kilometers out. Nina Bowman, his assistant, doubts the scan will reveal anything new. She leaves to prepare Theodore for transport. At the Bradford police station, Marianne and Elijah ask for Sheriff Simmons but are told he isn't there. Elijah examines a display cabinet, finds an old photograph labeled 1938, and sees Theodore in it. Marianne refuses to believe it could be the same man. Back at the hospital, Theodore awakens to see armed soldiers approaching. When a nurse comes to sedate him again, he knocks the man out, steals his uniform, and escapes. Theodore navigates the modern hospital in awe, breaking into a car but setting off the alarm. Bowman spots him and alerts security, just as he speeds away on a stolen motorcycle. At the crash site, recovery teams pull the wrecked plane from the creek. Ground tremors persist. A technician named Milberg tells Kaminsky he believes the eye is some kind of temporal portal, and everything from the past must return through it. Kaminsky, ignoring the theory, just orders him to focus on repairing the plane. Marianne stops at a gas station. Elijah insists the man in the 1938 photo is Theodore, not a relative, but the same man, displaced by time. He explains that, like destiny, time pulls people where they're meant to be. While Marianne checks the overheating engine, Elijah finds and reads the letter she tried to hide. He learns they're not moving to San Diego together, as he thought. Marianne is leaving him behind with an aunt. Hurt, Elijah accuses her of abandoning him. Marianne says she made a promise to his father to always do what's best for him. Elijah wonders aloud if he's just been too much trouble. Marianne assures him he's not the problem, and that his aunt will care for him like family. She tells him everything will be alright. As Marianne pulls away from the station, she spots Ted stumbling toward the road. Instead of hitting them, he crashes his motorcycle nearby. Elijah jumps out, convinced it's fate, and asks Ted if he's in the old photograph. Ted confirms, pointing to another man in the picture, Simmons. Elijah insists Ted needs their help. Marianne hesitates, then asks where Ted is headed. He says he wants to return home to find his wife, Pauline. Hearing police sirens in the distance, Marianne urges Ted to hop into the SUV. Following Ted's directions, they arrive at a modest home. Ted rushes in, calling out Pauline's name. A nurse opens the door, confused by his presence. Marianne and Elijah follow, and Elijah tells the woman that Ted is an old friend of Pauline's. She explains Pauline is at her pottery class and will return shortly. While waiting, Ted finds framed photos on the wall. Their wedding pictures, Pauline, much older now, with another man, and their children. The realization hits him, and he steps outside in silence. Meanwhile, Marianne searches online, and finds Ted's obituary. It states he crashed and was shot while evading capture. Inside, the TV broadcasts a news alert claiming Elijah has been abducted. The nurse notices and quietly moves to call authorities. Realizing he's in danger, Ted slips out the back, only to be met by soldiers. With hands raised, Ted walks into the open. Kaminsky and Agent Bowman approach, claiming they only want to send him back to where he came from. As the earth trembles again, Bowman explains it's due to Ted's displacement in time. Kaminsky confirms Ted has leaped into the future, and they're running out of time to correct it. Elijah suddenly bolts from the shadows, telling Ted that he's supposed to have died in Burma. The boy urges Ted into the SUV. Locking the doors, Ted speeds away with Elijah, as Marianne shouts for them to stop. Soldiers pursue them, but Ted veers through backyards, reaching a dusty, forgotten moonshiner's road. They stop near an old house by the river. Ted tells Elijah this is where he last danced with Pauline before deployment. He explains he never said goodbye due to superstition. Elijah confirms the obituary's account. Ted was meant to die fleeing from captors. Ted solemnly says he doesn't belong in this world anymore, and should go back. Elijah disagrees, saying his stepmother wants to abandon him, and that they're both lost. Elijah wants to keep running, but Ted questions the purpose. Pauline moved on, built a life without him. Elijah shows a photo of his late father, who was killed in Afghanistan. Ted apologizes, but says he has no place in this world anymore. The two sit silently by the river. Elijah says Ted could still reclaim a life with Pauline. Ted doubts it. Elijah suggests that if Ted goes back with protection, like a Kevlar vest, maybe he could survive. Maybe the rift gave him a second chance. Elsewhere, Marianne is brought to a military hangar where technicians are restoring Ted's wrecked fighter plane. Kaminsky tells her she's the only one who might be able to locate Elijah. Marianne refuses, suspecting they only want to send Ted back to die. Kaminsky warns the stakes are bigger than she realizes, but she remains skeptical. Elijah and Ted return to town. Ted admits he wants to die. Pauline has moved on. Elijah asks how he knows. Ted recalls a charm they found on their first date, which Pauline pinned above their fireplace. It wasn't there when he visited the house. He believes she chose to forget him. Kaminsky tells Marianne that global disasters have resulted from objects not being returned through rifts. The only way to seal them is to send everything back. Marianne finally gives in, revealing Elijah has her phone. Meanwhile, Elijah takes Ted to a closed military surplus store, hoping to gear up. Ted tries to pick the lock, but fails. It's reinforced steel. As Bowman drives Marianne and soldiers back into town, Marianne asks how often these rifts have failed to be closed. Bowman admits Kaminsky believes it's a small oversight. Bowman, however, thinks the rift has intent, that it opens for a reason, and remains open for exactly 11 hours. What needs to happen within that time, she doesn't know. Ted and Elijah head toward a nearby rail yard as sirens blare in the distance. Overhead, a helicopter spots them and alerts the agents. Marianne, seeing them from afar, pleads with Kaminsky, give her a chance to talk to Ted first. Kaminsky agrees and steps aside. Ted volunteers to return, this time equipped with protection, but Marianne warns him that he's not a soldier anymore. She explains that if he doesn't re-enter the rift exactly the way he exited it, the shockwave could wipe out everything within a 10-mile radius. Elijah, doubtful, insists they're lying to manipulate Ted. Marianne pulls Elijah aside, gently but firmly telling him that this might be the only way. Ted, resigned, agrees to go back. Back at Pauline's home, Kaminsky gives Ted 5 minutes to say goodbye. Inside, Ted finds Pauline seated at the kitchen table, puzzling over something. He approaches slowly. She looks up, her face softening into a smile. Ted apologizes for vanishing, for never saying goodbye, for leaving so much unsaid. He confesses he never stopped loving her, even after all this time. When he says he has to leave again, Pauline shows him the tiny charm, once a prize from a crackerjack box, now worn around her neck. Ted smiles, emotional, and invites her to dance once more. As the song fades, Kaminsky steps in. It's time. Outside, Marianne and Elijah wait. Ted heads to the restored fighter jet. Elijah throws his arms around him. Ted assures the boy he'll be okay. He then asks for a moment alone with Marianne. Ted brings up California, the place Elijah dreamed of going, and how isolated the boy feels. Elijah reveals that Marianne is planning to drop him off with relatives in Indiana. Ted understands. Marianne sees Elijah and is reminded of her late husband. Ted tells her he believes the rift brought him here because of her and Elijah. Like her husband, he was a pilot, lost in war. Maybe this was about closure, not just for him, but for her. Marianne begins to understand. The rift isn't here to take, it's here to guide. He's confident now. With that, Ted climbs into the cockpit, glancing one last time at a photo of Pauline. The jet launches toward the rift. As the fighter passes through, the rift seals behind him, vanishing without a trace. Marianne and Elijah hold each other for a moment before walking away from the site. The next day, they hit the road together, driving toward San Diego. Elijah gazes out the window, a small smile on his face, as he looks up at the wide open sky. Amazing Stories 2020 is a reboot of the classic 1985 anthology series by Steven Spielberg. Each episode tells a standalone fantasy or sci-fi themed story that explores wonder, imagination, and the unexpected. While visually polished and emotionally driven, the series often leans more on nostalgia than innovation. It's a family-friendly collection of tales with heartwarming messages, but lacks the edge or complexity found in modern anthology counterparts.